Welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. The Major League Baseball trade deadline is here. We got a lot of rumors around Shohei Ohtani, of course, over the last couple of days, but obviously he is now off the market. We'll dig into some of that as well. But we saw a trade today between the Milwaukee Brewers, Pittsburgh Pirates, sending over Carlos Santana going to the Brewers. They fill their first base DH role in that offense, which we thought C.J. Cron might be the guy that might be labeled for that spot, but it seems like they decided to go in a different direction. But that seems to be at least the trades that have happened so far today. Yesterday, after we got off the air anyway, the LA Angels made a major move, pushing their chips to the center, trading away their number 2 and 3 prospects in order to bring in Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez from the Chicago White Sox. Big move for them because this literally signifies that they will indeed be adding here at the deadline. This means that they are not going to be trading Shohei Ohtani, even though I think it's complete organizational malpractice to not trade him a couple of years ago, last offseason, or even right now. I think they just missed the boat right here. They're literally giving away the last little scraps of their farm system just to be able to make one last run with Shohei Ohtani. Now, of course, you see all the arguments. Oh, well, of course they would try to, win once again with Shohei Ohtani. Of course they would try to compete with Mike Trout. You'd be crazy to think they wouldn't. Well, we've seen them try and try and try to do that in the past. How many times have they made it to the postseason with both of those two players on their roster? I'll give you a minute. It's 0. That's why it's a mistake for them to go ahead and do what they have done and go ahead and bring in guys here at the deadline and not trade Shohei Ohtani. Now, don't get me wrong. The Angels are in a good shape as far as the possibility of making a wild card spot, but are they really going to make a push in the postseason after they get there? I don't see it happening. Now, of course, they could still completely empty out their farm system and try to add one more starter, another bullpen piece, maybe somebody in the regular everyday lineup. Maybe that's an opportunity for the Angels to improve their roster. But even if they did that, are they a better team today than the Houston Astros? Are they a better team today than the Texas Rangers? Are they a better team today than the Baltimore Orioles? Are they a better team today after the trade than the Tampa Bay Rays? No, 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 and no. That's the problem I have with the position the LA Angels have decided to go, and we'll see how this ultimately works out. I think Perry Manassian basically just signed his the rest of his future over as far as the general manager of any team in professional sports. I think his last job as general manager will be that of the LA Angels. It's his job to speak reason to ownership and convince them to do the right thing for the organization as a whole. I understand it's Artie Moreno's team. He owns the team. But the right decision, the right baseball move, was to trade Shohei Ohtani. Welcome in, Hank. Angels and Brewers news. Yes, there was. Rangers and Astros have the most polite brawl. Yeah. Well, there wasn't really a brawl. It's just basically like, hey, we didn't really appreciate you guys hitting our guy. We didn't appreciate you guys hitting our guy. And just jawing back and forth. Angels have made a big mistake. I agree. Absolutely. Unless they know for sure he will resign. I'll put it this way. Let's say the best case scenario happens. The Angels somehow, one way or another, convince Shohei Ohtani that this is the right place for him to resign after this season. What exactly are they going to do for their future after they re-sign him? I'm serious. What exactly is the bright spot in their future that they can turn to and say, we're going to get better in this area, we're going to get better in that area, we're going to get better here, we're going to get better there? Where is there room for opportunity? Where's their growth coming from? Sign guys in free agency? Well, you got Shohei Ohtani right now for about $10 million remaining on this season's contract. He's going to be worth about double that next season, so he's going to be getting what, $50-60 million for the entire season, not just for a couple of months like the $10 million he's owed the rest of the season. But again, where exactly is the growth going to come from for the Angels? I just don't see it. Complete organizational malpractice is exactly what the Angels have become. Welcome back, Sarah. Your Cards are terrible, losing 7-1. Yeah, I'm watching that game right now, actually. Maybe next year Arenado ain't getting traded. I don't agree. I'll put it this way. Before yesterday, I would have put the chances at Arenado getting traded at 0.001%. That's not good. Now that we actually have some news that he's willing to possibly accept a trade to the LA Dodgers, it sounds like he would 100% accept a trade there, actually. I think the chances have actually risen quite a bit. Now, I'm not saying it's likely. I'm not even saying it's 50%. I'm not even saying it's 10% likely. But going from 0.001%, where you're literally being bowled over by an offer, you're insane to not accept the offer of trading Nolan Arenado. I think we're getting to the possibility that maybe, just maybe, if a team comes along with the right offer, the Cardinals might just say yes, and it doesn't necessarily have to bowl them over. That's the change, I think, in the Nolan Arenado sweepstakes. I think that conversation really shifted over the last 24 hours because of the information coming out about him being willing to accept a trade to the Dodgers and no other team. I'm just pretty surprised that it's come this early before the deadline. I think this probably means something might actually happen at this point, rather than say a couple of days before the deadline. So this Nolan Arenado news actually gives the Cardinals and Dodgers both some time to negotiate this type of a trade. Because as I mentioned, big aircraft carrier type of trades are going to take some time to figure out. That's why the majority of them are going to happen between now and Friday, now and Saturday, now and Sunday. Because once you get into Monday and Tuesday, it's the market reestablishing itself, rentals being traded, and back-end bullpen arms getting moved on deadline day. You're not going to see big aircraft carriers like Nolan Arenado moved at the very last second on deadline day. It's just not going to happen. Those are very big franchise-altering type trades that are going to take some time. And that's why I think the shift of the conversation, at least around Nolan Arenado, now at least for sure have one team, and the Dodgers have already reached out to the Cardinals about him. I'm sure they had already done so before this, but now that the news has come out, he would 100% accept a trade. I think the Cardinals are at least far more open-minded than they would have been, say, 24 hours ago. Jose, Padres doing the same thing Angels did with Ohtani. Padres throwing Soto's name in trade talks just to listen to offers. I agree with you on that one, actually. Juan Soto's just too big of a name, too big of an investment for the Padres right now for them to go ahead and turn around and trade him 1 year later. Just look at all the pieces that they gave up for him. They aren't going to get half of that if he's traded right now. C.J. Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, all their top-end prospects, you're not getting that back right now in a trade for Juan Soto right now. And just got to keep that in mind when you're hearing these names out there on the market. I think with Ohtani's name being pulled back, they're trying to reestablish themselves as having the biggest piece on the market just to see what they could possibly get. Now, I don't think that the Padres are going to do what they did with Ohtani, in that case, meaning that they're going to buy here at the deadline. I don't think that's quite the case. I still think they should probably stand pat, with the exception of maybe trading guys like Snell and Hader. Hader's going to get a pretty nice price on the open market. Snell might be a little tougher to move because he is a big-time starting pitcher for you guys, but the Texas Rangers actually go to San Diego tomorrow and start a 3-game series there. I think it's going to be very difficult for the Texas Rangers to not try to do everything they possibly can to get a guy like Josh Hader. It's only a couple of months left on his contract, and I think that the Padres front office is really going to have to consider, are they willing to hold on to Josh Hader in hopes of making a wild card spot? Or are they willing to kind of get some of the assets back that they've lost with all the trades, all the additions that they've made over the past couple of years for guys like Juan Soto, for Josh Bell last year, Drury last year, the Snell, all these different additions that they've made. It might be time for them to try to recoup a little bit of that prospect capital. And Hader, just trading Hader itself wouldn't be a sign that they're throwing in the towel. The Rangers could give them, a bullpen piece back, or maybe they go out there and get another guy in the bullpen for them. But moving just Josh Hader, I don't think is a complete throw in the towel for the season type of move for them. So I still think they could move some pieces around the periphery. But let's get into some of the rumors from around Major League Baseball as well. In case you guys are new here, we cover Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, and the NBA. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like button. It really does help us out. First and foremost, you're seeing the Braves have signed a few minor leaguers anyway. A couple of them with some Major League experience anyway. Eli White's the one name that pops out to me. The Braves are indeed looking for some outfield help, and we saw how good Eli White was for them, for the Texas Rangers defensively last year in a short tenure there before he got injured. And he could be kind of a fourth, fifth outfielder. A lot of speed, somebody who might actually make the postseason roster just for his speed alone. So that's kind of the one interesting piece out of that we can kind of glean from there. The one piece of news, of course, the trade that did happen, Carlos Santana going to the Brewers. I think this is kind of the perfect small-time buy for the Milwaukee Brewers. They're not going to go out there and spend $30 million on a free agent contract or anything like that. They're going to tinker around the edges of their roster almost constantly. And I think this is the perfect type of addition for them. I thought more of a power hitter might be a little bit better for their lineup. A guy like C.J. Cron I thought might fit a little bit better. I'm wondering if the asking price was just a little too high for their liking, so they go ahead and pivot to Carlos Santana. Now, we talked a lot about the free agents that the Brewers have in a couple of years. Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff, and Willie Adames all hit free agency at the same time. They have about 1 year and 2 months left on their contracts right now. Brewers are going to have some interesting decisions to make. Sure, they could go ahead and re-sign one of them. Are they going to be able to re-sign all three and keep Christian Yelich and the rest of their team together? I don't think there's a chance they're going to have the type of money needed to do that kind of a thing. So if they're going to make the offer that they need to all of their pending free agents, what guys are most likely to re-sign there? We mentioned that Corbin Burns had his relationship with the organization soured over the arbitration process this winter. I'm sure that could be solved with a big-time offer as far as money to give him some long-term security there in Milwaukee. He is probably going to be the NL Cy Young. It's going to be between him and probably Spencer Strider. Welcome back, Mark. Welcome back, JG. But I think some type of move is going to happen with one of those four players for the Milwaukee Brewers before the end of this offseason. So it doesn't necessarily have to happen here at the deadline, but I think we could see something happen like we saw with Josh Hader last year, where it just surprises all of us, literally comes out of nowhere. So Let us know in the comments which one of those guys do you think is the odd man out in Milwaukee. Your choices are Burns, Woodruff, Adames, and Yelich. Yelich, remember, is on that big-time contract. He's recouped a little bit of his value with a resurgent year this year, but hasn't been enough to really make him a tradable asset. Mark, rumor tonight that Toronto is looking at Pham. Pham is certainly available. Dodgers are said to be interested in him as well. Yankees are said to have been interested as well. Welcome in, Ethan. Appreciate you for joining us once again. Juan Soto to Texas report says Ray Davis is pushing for the front office to make a blockbuster deal. Ray Davis has been the driving force behind this, which for Rangers fans is a welcome sight for Rangers fans. I mean, as far as the Rangers organization has been going over the last 4 or 5 years, they've really struggled to get wins. They make the big-time free agent acquisition last offseason, bringing in Marcus Semien and Corey Seager. Seager is expected back here within the next week or so. As far as this year, they went out and added to that pitching rotation. They brought in Jacob deGrom, Eovaldi, Heaney. They re-signed Martin Perez. I think Perez's money, the $20 million contract, the qualifying offer that he signed this past offseason, I think he's going to be the odd man out of the rotation after this year, so that frees up $20 million of future salary. So we shall see what ultimately happens. As for the Juan Soto of it all, they really have some outfielders on the up and come for them. I'm not sure if Soto is the right guy for Texas. I think they're going to be looking more towards pitching additions more than anything else. I think the blockbuster addition is going to come on the pitching side once again, rather than the offensive side. Although I do think they're still going to be looking for a corner outfield bat / designated hitter. They have one of the league worst production at the DH spot this year. They would really like to get somebody in there who can give them a little bit better, more productive at bat out of that spot. They probably have the best 5 through 9 out of all the entire league right now as far as their lineup is concerned. Saw a bunch of the New York media basically echo that same sentiment, but it could get even just a little bit better with that DH spot. Their backup catcher situation, I think, might get some improvement just with more playing time being available now for Garver and Huff, just because Heim is going to be out right now for at least a little bit of time because of that injury. I'm not expecting him to miss a lot of time either. Not that hyped about Soto. Great, yes, but we are okay. No need to break the bank. I agree. For an outfielder, I would break it for a big-time starting pitcher like Corbin Burns. Welcome back, Willard. Been a while since we've seen you. Wouldn't be surprised if Houston gets Cody Bellinger. As far as Cody Bellinger is concerned, I'm beginning to wonder if the Cubs are going to hold on to him. I think it would still be prudent for them to trade Marcus Stroman and Cody Bellinger, and it might sap all of their momentum to try to make a run at either the division or for a wild card spot. But I think it'd be wise for the Cubs to trade Bellinger. I think you'd get a pretty penny for him. Same thing with Stroman. You might be able to add some lesser pieces that give you a similar impact on your roster without necessarily the name recognition of Stroman or Bellinger. It might be a wise decision for them. Right now they're playing with Bellinger. They just scored a couple of runs, now 9-1 against Sarah's Cardinals. Sorry, Sarah, had to do it to you. But Cardinals had Michaelis ejected from this game after he hit Contreras in the side of his head, lacerated the side of his head. Probably going to be fine in the long term, but Michaelis threw at Happ after he hit him in the head with the bat there. Michaelis was ejected. Marmol was ejected. So even though the Cardinals were the one that got dinged with Contreras getting hit in the head by the backswing of Happ, they are the team that's ended up missing 3 people off of their team for today's game. So interesting thing to watch right now. Rangers about to trade Evan Carter and Jack Leiter package for Soto and Hader. I don't think that's happening. Evan Carter, I think the Rangers would rather have him alone rather than Juan Soto. I think Evan Carter's ceiling right now is getting very, very high, and the Rangers are just salivating at the possibility of having him in their lineup. There may even be a possibility Evan Carter is going to be on the postseason roster for this year's Texas Rangers team if they make a big-time trade for one of those blockbuster type of trades for Corbin Burns. If they include Ezekiel Duran as the main piece in it, then we could see a guy like Evan Carter on the big club. Acuna is having a great season right now for Texas in the minor leagues as well. Jack Leiter's really struggling in the minors. He's struggled with his fastball command. That's why his value's really dissipated over the last year or so. We'll see if he ultimately is traded by the Rangers before it continues to drop even further, or if the Rangers just want to stick it out and see if they can get his fastball back on track. Blake Snell to Texas is another one to watch for. I would agree, just because Texas needs a starting pitcher. As far as Blake Snell specifically, probably not. I think the Padres probably will hold out onto him rather than Josh Hader, just because he is a starting pitcher. It's harder to get that consistent starter for them. You might take that back about who's the best offense, 5-9 when Brantley comes back. Sorry, it's still going to be the Rangers. I mean, we have what, 3 hitters hitting over 300 in spots 5 through 9 in our order right now. Texas certainly has the best lineup in all of baseball, 5 through 9. Best overall lineup? That's another question. I still like Seager and Simeon at the top, but then I wonder about Lowe, but he's been one of the top 2 hitters in all of the American League so far in the second half. Kyle Tucker and Nathaniel Lowe, kind of 1 and 2 in the entire American League. Padres do that trade for Carter, though. If Texas wants Soto, it's over. I would agree. I think the Padres would probably say yes on Evan Carter plus other pieces. I don't think the Rangers are going to offer anything close to that for Soto. Sarah, DeYoung to the Red Sox. I don't think that's going to happen, but let's see if it's happening. I didn't see anything yet. Red Sox, remember, have Trevor Story coming back. They're trying to clear off some room for some pieces to come in off of their injured list. Maybe they do add here at the deadline. They did just trade Kike Hernandez back to the Dodgers. We'll see what happens. Bench is pretty amazing as well, Hank. I would agree, except there's a couple of spots, a couple of pieces that we could add here. That's why I've been talking a lot about the Rangers adding a designated hitter. One guy that would have to go off of the lineup is going to be a guy like Brad Miller. If the Rangers do add 2 pieces, say they lose Ezekiel Duran, that would open up another spot. But Robbie Grossman, I think, is another man that could be the odd man out. Jankowski's been fantastic. Smith has been up and down, but I still think his value is really high for the Rangers. The intangibles, the versatility he brings is, think of him as kind of like a souped-up Charlie Culberson last year. Snell, for his career, is better than Cliff Lee, almost the same. He's 30, Cliff Lee was 31. I'd still rather have Cliff Lee. To me, Cliff Lee was more dominant. Snell never has been the dominant type of pitcher. Lee, of course, was the one that would get you deep into games. Snell is done after 5 or 6 innings, so I have to disagree with you on that one, Ethan. Pirates are receiving some interest in Rich Hill and Holderman as well. Remember, a lot of starting pitching needs out there from contending teams. And with the LA Angels surprising everybody and deciding not to trade Shohei Ohtani and add Lucas Giolito and Ronaldo Lopez, now there's going to be an increased market now for starting pitchers. Prices are going to be just a little bit higher because they've already taken one of the top guys at the trade deadline off of the market. Rich Hill could get somebody, a medium, a decent prospect anyway. We're not talking about anybody's top 10, but maybe a 15 to 20 guy. I do like that order. I agree, Willard. For me, Altuve, Alvarez, Bregman, Tucker, that's probably one of the top 5 in all of baseball. I'll put it that way. But beyond that, Chas McCormick's had a nice resurgent year for you guys. After that, though, that's when I have the issues for the Astros. Dubon's had a nice year, but can you count on him in a playoff series? I guess you could say the whole same thing for a lot of the Rangers lineup, just because they haven't been in the postseason. But for me, we shall see. All right. Let's kind of go through some of these other trade rumors that we've seen. Oh, did we get another one? Nope. Okay. There's the Juan Soto news anyway. The Padres supposedly listening to him. Remember the offer or the trade that they actually made for him. C.J. Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, James Wood, Robert Hassel. Probably the biggest pieces in that deal. A couple other pieces in that deal as well. A big series this weekend for the Padres against the Rangers. If the Rangers sweep the Padres, I think that's going to write the book on the Padres season. So, Padres have got to get some wins this weekend. Montgomery more likely getting moved. I would agree. I think Montgomery's going to get moved. Flaherty's going to get moved. Not sure about Michaelis. I think you could see at least one of the outfielders for the Cardinals be moved. And if the Dodgers pony up the right price, maybe, just maybe, that 1% chance now of an Arenado trade after that announcement that he'd be willing to waive it for the LA Dodgers, maybe, just maybe, they move him. That would probably be the biggest offensive piece to move since Ohtani will not be moved here at the deadline. The trade for Carlos Santana. The Pirates got back Johnny Severino. Former international prospect. Carlson or O'Neill likely moved. If I had to pick one of those two, I would probably go O'Neill. Not really high on either one of them, but I think one of the outfielders will be moved. Maybe like 33% all the way around for a lot of those outfielders. I would still take Cliff Lee. I mean, Tampa Bay protected Blake Snell. The Padres have protected Blake Snell for that 5-6 innings, and they are very good 5-6 innings, but you're not counting on him getting you a complete game. You're not counting on him get you deep in a postseason series. Cliff Lee was a different type of animal altogether. I would so much rather have Cliff Lee. What do the Red Sox do? I think they'll end up trading one more of their outfielders. My guess, Adam Duvall will once again suit up for the Atlanta Braves. At what point do they finally make the decision and just say, hey, Duvall, we've traded for you 3 times already. Can we just go ahead and sign you after the season at this point? We'll see if they ultimately decide to do so, but I think Duvall is probably the one guy that's left to go off of that roster. After that's done, then we could see them make some smaller additions, maybe to that rotation, maybe to the back end of the bullpen. We shall see. Pena, absolutely. Altuve, there's more holes in Altuve's swing than you think. Brantley, what has he done in the last 2 years for Brantley? He's a very good professional hitter, but can he stay healthy and even be there in a postseason series? As for Abreu, he's having a really down year. But I agree with you as far as Alvarez, Tucker, those guys are aircraft carriers for your organization right now. Bregman is hopefully starting to get out of his rut that he was in, at least for the first couple of months. Wasn't hitting that 280, 300 that we expect from him. Altuve's missed so much time. He's going to need some time to get back into the swing of things, and we'll see how things go. But for me, Alvarez and Tucker, I agree with you. Very few teams, very few pitchers at all in all of baseball could pitch to either of those two, not just on the Rangers staff, but anybody. Those are some great offensive pieces for you, Willard. Some more news from the Cardinals is that extension talks have not progressed between Jordan Hicks and the Cardinals, which basically means for contenders out there, if you're needing a relief arm, Jordan Hicks might very well be the guy that you want to go after if you can't pry a guy like Bednar out of the Pirates or Hader out of the Padres. Might be one of the best arms for the bullpen on the market outside of those guys. Maybe if you talk to the Mets, if they finally decide to sell here at the deadline, you could talk about Robertson, Raley. Those guys might be right there, maybe even a skosh above Hicks. But Hicks right now would be a great fit for a lot of those postseason teams out there. Foscue for Hicks, ouch. I'm just really high on Justin Foscue. For what Ezekiel Duran has done this year for the Texas Rangers offense, that's kind of what I picture Justin Foscue essentially being offensively for the Rangers. Do I think he has a spot long-term for the Rangers? Absolutely not, which is the downside for him. I would really have liked to have seen him have a future with the Rangers, but it just doesn't look like it's going to happen, so he will be trade bait. The question is it good enough value to get Hicks for Foscue? I would probably lean no from a Rangers perspective. We haven't even gone to the baseball trade value side of it, but for me, Justin Foscue, if I'm parting with him, I want an elite, top 5 bullpen piece coming back like Hader or a Bednar type piece, or I want to include him in an aircraft carrier type of, lineup addition, a DH type of hitter, or I'm looking for Corbin Burns type value along with a couple other prospects as well. That's what I'm holding out for trading Justin Foscue for. That's the future I see for Justin Foscue. So for those of you who are interested in a, high on base guy, high power guy at the second base spot, think of Jeff Kent. Think of guys like that at the second base spot. That's what I see Justin Foscue being at the major league level. He's got that level of bat in him. Ezekiel Duran just kind of progressed a little bit more. He had a little bit more pop than Foscue does. Clase coming back would be nice. That might be a little bit better of a deal for Justin Foscue if they were to do something like that. The question is, Clase's really had a down year by his standards. So is now the right time to get that type of bullpen piece back? Probably not. You're looking for guys who are having really strong years if you're looking for some bullpen additions. Bullpens are always notoriously mercurial. 1 year is sub 2 ERA, the next is a 5. So you want guys that are either A, going to be consistent sub 2.5 every single year, in which case that's when you look at guys at the top end of the bullpen, like guys like Hader, Bednar, those level of pieces. Outside of that, you're looking at guys 1 year, like I said, have a 5 ERA, the next have a 2.5. Peter, welcome in. Which high-end prospect do you think will be called up for the Red Sox or in baseball, period? Right now, we're seeing the Cincinnati Reds pretty much call up a top-end prospect every single day, it seems like. So, the Cincinnati Reds, anyway, add a prospect every single day. I think the the Guardians are going to do something similar after the trade for Rosario. They got a couple of guys at the minor league level that they're going to bring up to fill in that shortstop hole for them. I think the White Sox are going to bring up a couple of guys after they end up flushing their entire team. This trade deadline season, the Tigers are going to do something similar. You're going to see a lot of big name call-ups here. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. What's his name? Struggling with the name. Well, we'll just go with the one we saw last night anyway. Owen White, anyway, the top pitching prospect for the Texas Rangers, pitched a couple of innings against the Houston Astros, gave up another home run, but he still needs some time in the big leagues to kind of give him a real chance anyway. As far as, other top prospects that are out there, you're going to see a bunch of them in the next couple of weeks. One of them that may be traded is Jason Dominguez. If Ohtani would have been the piece coming back, if Arenado was willing to trade it or to give up his no trade protection anyway to go to the Dodgers, I wonder if he would do the same for the New York Yankees. It doesn't sound like it, but he could be a piece that would entice the Cardinals to at least think about a trade for Arenado. If a miracle do you think if offered Drew Gilbert for Roberts and Chas McCormick? No, not a chance. I don't think the White Sox are moving Roberts Jr. Hurstad for the O's, I agree there. Who picks up Jared Walsh? Not really sure. Leiter, he's not getting a call-up. He's not even going to get a double-A spot start right now. He right now is on the development rehab list anyway for double-A right now for the Texas Rangers. They're just trying to get his fastball right. So they're working with him right now pretty much exclusively in the bullpen until he gets that fastball working right, and then they'll put him back into game action. They're hoping to get him back into game action probably sometime in the middle of August. But right now they're really just trying to work on that command with that fastball. If he can get that fastball working, you're going to see him work very quickly back up to that high-end prospect status. But it's the fastball is why Jack Leiter's really struggled in the minors right now. He's lost pretty much all command for it down there. And tough to see a prospect go from as elite status as he was coming into the draft and being drafted number 2 overall and to go to where he is now. So does he have the talent to get there? Absolutely. He's got the all the knowledge base around him to be able to get it done, but he's going to have to do it. He's going to have to do it on his own. He can't have his dad show him how to pitch or how to locate that fastball. He's got to learn to have feel for that pitch again, and that's going to take a little bit of time. Gavin Stone for the Dodgers possibly. I agree there. Ethan, would you trade Carter for a package of Dylan Cease and Joe Kelly? No. I would rather build that trade package around pretty much anybody else besides Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford right now. I think those guys are completely off limits in trade discussions right now for the Rangers. They would much rather trade guys that are kind of blocked positionally, guys like Ezekiel Duran, Justin Foscue, Acuna to a lesser extent, pieces like that. But Dylan Cease, is he the type of pitcher I would want at this year's deadline? No, unfortunately. He's not having a good year right now, and so that's kind of the issue I have with Dylan Cease. He's still pitching to, a 4 ERA right now. Joe Kelly's around a 4 and change. He had a better start to the season anyway, but Dylan Cease long term, sure, but this season, no. We're trying to get better production this season for this pennant race. So that's why I think a trade for a guy like Dylan Cease very unlikely, because I don't think the White Sox are wanting to move him, and I don't think they're going to get the offers that they would expect if they decided to move him. You got to trade Carter for control? Why? You got enough pieces to where you can hold on to Carter without, and still get your starting pitcher, that whoever you want on the market right now. I mean, Corbin Burns isn't even on the market per se. You see all these top trade options as far as starting pitchers out there. Dylan Cease might be the best of them. I'm not trading Evan Carter for Dylan Cease right now. Sure, it would take more than Carter, but from a Rangers perspective, it's just the fact that I'm not moving Evan Carter, period. It's not happening. It's a non-starter. I'd rather trade something like a Ezekiel Duran, lighter possibly, pieces like that. And you'd still get a really representative trade value out of there. Rafaela from Boston get a call. I agree. There's a lot of options out there as far as call-ups in August. You're going to see a bunch of them, especially in September. Let's kind of wrap up some of these things here. Angels creating roster space after their trade, designating Tucker Davidson. Didn't trade Mazzara for prime Chris Sale. Well, I would have really liked Chris Sale, I agree, but that would have cost a prospect package of at least 5 prospects, and they really wanted Nomar Mazzara. This was right around the time they had already flushed their farm system for guys like Cole Hamels. It just wasn't going to happen. It was going to literally cost the rest of the future the Rangers had, not just including Nomar. Now, Nomar's Mazzara didn't really work out for the Rangers. Really liked him coming into this around that time for the Rangers, and I still would agree with what the Rangers did at that time. Do I think that the trade for Cole Hamels, etc., was the right move for them organizationally? In hindsight, everything is 2020, but you can say pretty much the pieces that you lost there, you could have traded them elsewhere. I think the biggest trade that didn't work out for them would be a trade like the one for Jonathan Lucroy or Carlos Beltran. That was the trades that really hindered the Rangers going forward and having their guys having that long period where they struggled to win games. Duran value is super high. I wouldn't move him for the right blockbuster like Stroman or Bellinger. I think either Stroman or Bellinger would be way too low of a value for Duran. Duran probably would be able to get you both. That's how high a value Duran is right now. And I don't think that would be the piece that would go if they brought in one or the other, or even both. Duran is the biggest trade chip the Rangers have really had in years. They're going to use it in a blockbuster type move. Bellinger and Stroman, not a blockbuster move. We talked a little bit about the other day, the Giants looking at Justin Verlander and hoping he would waive his no trade to come there and add to their rotation. Well, apparently the Giants starters are also getting some interest. If they did add Verlander, maybe they could sell one of those pieces. And as we mentioned, with the Angels deciding to be a buyer and already taking Giolito off the market, starters across the league are going to go for higher prices than they may have a couple of days ago. But I don't think the Giants will necessarily be selling any of their starters right now because they currently sit in a wild card spot. Unless the Sox go after Hader and have to give up a piece. Well, I think there's going to be other teams, if Hader is moved, that are going to be able to outbid the Sox rather easily. Rangers, I think, would pretty much outbid everybody if Hader really was available. That would give them 3 top-level lefties out of their bullpen. Sure, they would love to have a righty like a David Bednar, but if Hader is really available, I find it hard to believe that the Rangers would be outbid or the Dodgers would be outbid for him. Although I can hardly see the Padres, giving Josh Hader to the Dodgers. They have the prospect wherewithal to be able to get it done. The Angels may be able to empty out what's left of their farm system to be able to get it done. But I just find it hard to believe that the Rangers would let any team outbid them for another bullpen piece. They absolutely need a bullpen arm. They will do whatever it has to, or whatever they have to do to get a piece back. I think he gets you both as well. San Diego Padres Fernando Tatis Jr.'s trade shocked the world. Um, this offseason, it would have shocked the world to me. It wouldn't have shocked me though, just because all the headlines around the offseason and around his suspension anyway. I think the organization and player have kind of mended fences to a certain extent. Do I still consider him a leader on that team? No, not a chance. Fernando Tatis Jr.'s role as leader on that team is gone. That is left up to Xander Bogaerts right now, Juan Soto, Manny Machado, Joe Musgrove. Those are the players that are the leaders on the team before you get to Fernando Tatis Jr. And if they decided to trade him, say, in a few years, maybe. But right now, I don't think that's happening at all. For sure, Dodgers and Padres farm system could get him. I'm guessing you're referring to the Rangers farm system. I agree. Perez and Miller, $25 million off the books, quick. Yep. Rangers are going to have a hole in their rotation for a starter anyway. They're going to try to bring up some guys from the minor leagues. Owen White could earn one of those spots. But if they decide to go the trade route and bring in a guy like Corbin Burns, he is going to be your game one starter in a postseason series. Then you got Eovaldi, then probably Dunning, then Gray, then Heaney. Heaney's had a good year for the Rangers. I'm not sure if he's going to opt in or out of his deal with Texas. Right now, I guess he's probably going to lean towards opting out just to see if he can get a multi-year deal on the market of similar average annual value. But he might be the guy that opts out of that rotation. John Gray's got another year left on that for the Rangers as well. But Perez, I think, is going to be the odd man out. I think he may end up signing with the LA Angels after this year. Remember the deal that Tyler Anderson got? That was the deal Perez turned down with the Angels before the season began. I think if the Angels offered it to him again, that might be the best offer he gets from other teams out there, and he may actually sign it and help their rotation. But Perez, probably one of my favorite Texas Rangers starting pitcher over the last 5-10 years or so. Yu Darvish is up there for me as far as favorite Rangers starting pitchers. It'd be tough to see him go, but he's not the same pitcher he was last year. He struggled with his command, and that's really what kind of set him apart last year was that command and spotting up those pitches. With robo-umps coming into the picture, he's not going to be nearly as effective, and so that's why I think the $20 million average annual value he's making this year is not going to fly next year for the Rangers. So they're going to try to distribute that money a little bit differently. Add another starting pitcher this offseason. There's going to be a few starting pitchers in the free agent market that should be available and help any pitching staff out there. The Rangers are, as I mentioned, still looking for a designated hitter / corner outfielder here at the deadline, a starting pitcher, and some bullpen help. We shall see what they end up doing. Rangers, as I mentioned over and over and over again, are the team best positioned to do any trade they ultimately decide to do here at the deadline. We'll see which direction they ultimately decide to go. Rangers and O's have not been in a position for this for a while, so I expect them to be busy. Rangers, yes. O's, I don't necessarily expect them to be super busy. I don't expect them to really mortgage their future to try to add to their organization. I do expect them to add around the periphery, maybe a number 3 type starter, 4 type starter, maybe a bench bat, something like that. They're not going to trade their top end prospects for pieces that aren't going to be around for the long term. So O's will add, but not to the level that the Rangers necessarily would add. Anything you see the Yankees do? Welcome back, Sub-Zero, by the way. Appreciate you for joining us once again. Welcome back, Bryce. Anything you see the Yankees do, I think they're going to add probably a corner outfielder. I think they could add a starting pitcher as well. The Rodon injury for much of the season kind of really hurt them. The Judge injury, etc., has also hurt them this year. But I could see them adding some small pieces to that lineup. If Shohei Ohtani was ultimately made available, I think they would have mortgaged everything to be able to bring him in. But I just don't think that type of trade is out there for the Yankees at this point. There's not another Ohtani out there for them to trade for, unless for some reason Arenado decides to say, hey, I'll accept the Yankees as well. That would be the only other aircraft carrier that the Yankees might have interest in for, that level of trade anyway. Yankees will do something just because they're the Yankees. I agree. Soto news is that he's on the market. They're at least listening to offers. Do I expect anything to happen? Will anything happen? 0% chance and 0.000% chance. In case you guys didn't catch that, that's 0. It's not happening. It's just them trying to drum up some interest and get some feelers out there just to see what the market would be. I don't think that there's anything going to happen right now. In the offseason, possibly, but I think Soto's too big of a trade for them to discuss right now. They're not going to get nearly the prospect capital back for him that they want, and so right now it's just not a thing. That's not a thing that's going to happen. Darvish's trade value right now, it can't be that good. It's not. Yankees won't get anything they need to compete for a playoff run. They won't get everything they need for a playoff run. I agree, but they're the Yankees. Cashman's had some moves that just haven't worked over the last couple of years. I think Cashman's in a little bit of hot water, although I think him re-signing Aaron Judge gave him a lot of goodwill within that organization to where even if they stink it up and somehow miss the wild card, I think he probably gets another full season out of it. But if the Yankees miss the postseason 2 years in a row, then they're having a very different discussion, and Cashman's probably on his way out the door. But as things stand right now, they're on the outside of the playoff picture looking in, and we'll see if they're able to carve their way back in there. We talked a lot about Snell and Hader already. Appreciate you guys joining us today. Hopefully we get some more trades. Got a big one late last night with the LA Angels deciding to go ahead and add to their rotation, bringing in Lucas Giolito, and to their bullpen, Ronaldo Lopez. The numbers are a little bit misleading for Ronaldo Lopez. His velocity has certainly ticked up over the last couple of months, and that's really helped him out. The strikeouts are up there. I think he's only thrown 40 innings and has 52 strikeouts on the season. He's going to be a really good bullpen piece for them. Exactly the two types of pieces the Angels need right now here at the deadline. Do I think this elevates them to winning the AL West? No. Do I think this gets them above the Houston Astros or the Texas Rangers and possibly finishing second in the division? No. I think the Rangers and Astros, both as currently constructed, are still better than the Angels, and they're only going to get better at the trade deadline. As for where they ultimately finish this season, I think there's a really good chance they could end up being that final wild card now that they've decided to keep Ohtani and add the pieces they've already added, and they're still looking at possibly bringing in Candelario from the Nationals, maybe some other bullpen pieces. We shall see what ultimately happens. That I don't know. I think the busiest teams will be the Rangers, Mets, Braves, and Astros. As far as contenders, I would probably say the busiest would be Braves are always very busy. They've already made a couple of moves, so I'm going to put them in there by default. Rangers, just because I think they have the need for the big-time bullpen addition, the need for a DH addition, and the need for a starting pitcher. They might get the biggest piece out of any team out there. As far as sellers, who might be the busiest teams, don't forget about the Rockies. They have a number of small pieces that they could move here at the deadline. The Reds are expected to add a rotation piece. Don't forget about the Diamondbacks as well. But as far as sellers, I think the Cardinals are probably going to be one of the busiest as well. They have too many options, too many different pieces that they could trade that could fill any number of teams' needs here at the deadline. They have plenty of starting pitching that they can trade, multiple starters they can move, multiple bullpen pieces that they could move, multiple outfielders they could move, and if you want an aircraft carrier like Goldschmidt or Arenado, they have those guys available as well. Not that they would move them, but they have a great diversity in things that they could do here at the deadline. We'll see what ultimately happens with Contreras. I don't think that's going to be anything that sidelines him long term, but it might be enough to stop him from being traded here at the deadline after taking a bat to the noggin in today's game. But we shall see. Nice base hit there. A double for O'Neill in what could be his final game as a member of the St. Louis Cardinals. Appreciate you guys joining us here tonight. Really appreciate all the support we've gained over the last couple of days. I know we've gained a few more subscribers, so if you guys are new here, really appreciate you guys hitting that like and subscribe. Going to go ahead and call it here in just a few minutes. Might go over some of the standings real quick just to refresh everybody as to where everybody stands right now. As we speak anyway, Baltimore sits on top. In the East, Texas in the West. Remember, the top two teams in the American League and the National League will get a bye for that first playoff round. So that's kind of why it's so important for Baltimore and Texas to really win those divisions. Minnesota and Cleveland are going to battle it out for that Central Division. That's going to be the third division winner. They're going to still have to play in the wild card round more than likely. If you're able to go ahead and bypass around, let the teams get a little healthier. A team like Texas right now really could use the health. So if they're able to do so and hold on to the division crown, they would force Houston to have to play in the wild card round, and you never know what's going to happen. That's a series that would be between Tampa and Houston right now, two of the best teams in the American League. One of them would already be out of the playoffs before they even got to the division series. So that's why winning the division is so important right now. On the NL side, Braves look like they're going to run away with one of those spots that gets a bye. And then right now you're looking at the Dodgers and Milwaukee trying to battle it out for that other bye in that wild card series. So I think Dodgers probably get it, especially if they get an aircraft carrier like Arenado. I think Milwaukee's going to tinker with their roster a little bit, do a little bit of buying and selling here at the deadline. So keep your eyes peeled for some crazy trade ideas coming out of Milwaukee. And then you get into the wild card teams. Philadelphia is really starting to look good right now. I think they could use another starting pitcher, though. I'm really curious to see what they ultimately decide to do here at the deadline. Arizona and Miami really have fallen on some tough times recently. We'll see if they decide to add or just stand pat. There are some very young teams. Arizona has some outfield bats that they could move. Maybe get a starting pitcher in return for one of those bats. Cubs have had a nice run here. They're 5-0 in their last 5, 7-3 in their last 10. Looks like they're about to win here against the Cardinals here today once again. They're 4.5 out right now. They're looking in good shape to possibly make a run at a wild card spot or maybe even the division. That's the one division spot that's still kind of up for grabs. Padres are one of the teams that's kind of on the periphery looking in. They sit 5 games under 500 right now with a tough series against Texas right now this weekend. The Mets sit 7.5 back. It's going to be a tough road for either of those two to get into the postseason. So we'll see if either of them is able to get on a hot streak and make that type of climb. Cardinals, as we mentioned, are one of the teams that's going to sell big here. They're only 2 games behind the Mets. So that tells you just how bad things have gone for the Mets, that the Cardinals are considered surefire sellers here at the deadline, while the Mets only 2 games better than them. Well, they're still on the fence. New York media is kind of starting to lean towards the Mets front office, leaning towards the sell position. Doesn't necessarily they're going to sell the pieces that they really should. But I think that they could really do some interesting things here at the deadline, depending on how they decide to use Cohen's money. So thank you guys for joining us once again this evening. We'll be back again tomorrow night, 8:30. Make sure you join us every single day through the trade deadline. We'll be live for you guys all day on trade deadline day. We'll start early, around 8 a.m. We'll go all the way through the deadline, probably an hour or two after, till probably 6, 7 o'clock Central Time. But thank you guys so much for the support, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. Y'all have a good one.